Please welcome Mike, Eli, James Young, John Jones, and Chris Thompson of Eli Young Band. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome to Build.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Is this your first time here?
It is.
All right. Well, we're going to have a good time on stage. Very excited about your new music and new single, etc. So your latest album came out last year.
Right.
What did you set out to do this time around?
I mean, at this time around, I think that it was one of those things that we've been a band for 18 years. We've experimented with a lot of different sounds and done a lot of things with, we put out a song with Andy Grammer, and then we also, did an album that kind of steered away from what we've had been doing over the last 18 years. And so this album was kind of going back to some of that organic feel that we had already been. It's been so much of us before this, so it was an exciting record to make.
What was the process like for something like this?
Oh, it was pretty easy. It was really comfortable to kind of get back to our roots a little bit, and it was really just the four of us, sitting down and saying, what are the things that we've done over the years that really worked, that we really liked, and it was really going back and listening to the first few records. Back to when we started the band in Denton, Texas. We were all college roommates together, and it was kind of remembering back those days, what kind of brought the band together, what were the things that worked in the beginning, and how can we really incorporate that into this record.
That's great. Now, what about the themes that you're talking about on this record? I mean, I know you co-wrote some of the songs, some of you didn't write some of the songs, but like, what did you want to say?
I mean, at the end of the day, we've always wanted to just be honest, I think, with our music. I think that, your fans can tell when you're not being honest and you don't really believe what you're singing. And so, that's kind of that the first priority. But I think that there was some introspect. I think we were really looking inward a lot on this record. And then also kind of, taking stock on our lives at this point. I mean, like we said, we've been a band for 18 years. We were kids when we started this band, and now we're adults with kids at home. And so there comes a point where you're not really singing about the same things that you were singing about 15 years ago.
That is kind of an interesting part about the songwriting on this record is it was all written in a relatively short amount of time compared to our other records. Like, we'll wait, 3 years to put out a record, and there may be songs that were written, 5 years before that to make the record, and some that were written like a couple months before we recorded it. So, but with Fingerprints, it was all done in pretty much like a year or so. So it's kind of unique for us.
Sounds pretty seamless.
Seamless is not necessarily how I would put it. Nothing we've ever done in 18 years has been seamless. But, I think that, there comes a point where this day and age, the way that everyone's consuming music, it's so immediate. When we started and for so long, it's always been, you have this concept for this record and you put it together and you make sure that the songs fit together in this cohesive piece or whatever, But nowadays, the consumption of music is so different. You can't wait 3 years to put out records, and a lot of folks are putting out, songs. And we just recorded with a new producer, Dan Huff, a couple sides for our next project. Even though we're still promoting the last album, we've already started the next project, and we've got these 2 songs that are going to go out, and you don't have to wait. 3 years to put out the next record.
However, Fingerprints was the first time that we actually pressed vinyl. We've wanted to pretty much every record we wanted to press vinyl, but you've got to kind of tweak a few things, you got to master it differently to make it sound good on vinyl. So we finally did that. So we can we've always talked about record, which is really just the term means something different than it used to, but we can actually finally say record and mean record.
Yes.
It feels good. And it does. It still feels good to hold that in your hands.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like vinyl's really having a moment right now, like a re-moment or however you want to describe it. So people are craving it.
It is. I actually got my 5-year-old a record player for Christmas, and that's the only Christmas present he's still playing with. That makes any sense. So I love I go to the record store and get records for him, and that's like my fun thing to do. Yeah.
That's funny because I don't let my kid touch my vinyl records.
Oh no, they're like from the dollar. He has his own. He has his own collection. He gets like the dollar bin version of. Yeah.
Well, this Build space actually was a Tower Records. So
yeah, that's what we were actually talking about that before.
So you're kind of in the moment. It's a good thing to have.
It's funny because our drummer has quite the story to tell about Tower Records.
I was not allowed to go into Tower Records when I was a teenager, forcefully, because I was busted stealing a CD. So yeah, got kicked out. So
That was before Napster.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you're banned from All Tower Records.
All Tower Records. Yeah.
Well, I used to work at the Wall Music Store. I used to get a sticker, and it would you would have a lifetime guarantee, and there was a theft problem for people who were actually working there. So people would steal records all the time. So not me though.
Stealing music is something that's always it's been happening for a long time.
But don't steal Eli Young Band's music, right? Because
steal it. If you like it, just listen to it. Come to a show.
All right, right. Well, speaking of shows, you're on tour right now. What can we expect on the road?
Boy, we started out, live band was all we knew.
Yeah.
We started out in college just because we love playing music together and love getting on stage. And I think that's kind of been the constant through the past 18 years. So it's a fun, high energy show. We play the hits and some kind of try to do a little mix of songs over the past couple decades as a band. I don't know. We have a lot of fun, and we try to make sure that translate out to the audience.
It's a fun energy show.
It's hard not to be cliche with talking about what yeah.
Well, and we were blessed to have opened for a lot of people, starting out, and so we've got to tour with some of our heroes, and so it's fun now to go back and kind of play clubs and theaters and do our own shows where you play more than 40 minutes a night, and so you get to go out and play your songs and try out new songs from new records, and so we've been just having a lot of fun doing that as well.
Who are some of the people that you opened up for that you're like, oh, okay, this is great? I know you opened up for Miranda Lambert at some point, and probably plenty of other people as well.
Yeah, we've known Miranda for a long time. So early on in our career, when Miranda was getting her start, we were also getting our start. And so one of the big stories is how we were playing a show with Miranda, and that's how we met our first producer, Frank Liddell, who also produced Miranda. And so we've also gone on tour with Chesney, as well as Dave Matthews Band.
Yep. Gary Allen was the first kind of long winter tour we were on. Dirk Bentley for a couple of years.
Darius Rucker, that was a fun tour.
We also got to tour Australia with Tim and Faith, and that was a lot of fun too. We've been there twice. So yeah, who would have thought when we started the band in Denton all those years ago that the four of us would be touring all over the world and getting to.
We definitely didn't think we'd make it 18 years. So.
Yeah, I feel like that's a theme talking to you all. I feel like you're still pinching yourself that this is still a thing for you.
More about punching.
Punching. Well, pinching or punching.
After 18 years, at least we're not punching each other. That's the miracle.
But it seems like you also have a great friendship.
Yeah, some days.
Yeah.
No, that's the only way that you keep this thing together is you actually like each other.
Yeah.
I think that there are times when the four of us don't get along, but we've always understood that our friendship is a priority. It's gotten more complicated over the years because we have our families and our kids. But at the end of the day, the only thing and the only way that we're going to keep this thing going is that we prioritize our family and our friendships above the music and the music business and the money. And so as long as we kept the money in the right place and the music business in the right place and the priority was on each other, then it was pretty easy, mostly.
So we heard Neverland before you guys came on. What's the genesis of that song?
It's been a while.
I wrote it. I guess.
Well, I'll look at you, Mike, because you wrote the song.
It was a few
want
years
me to
ago.
make something
James
up?
and I, we wrote Neverland, and it was kind of like the initial idea, which I had brought to the table, and I think I got a little bit of an eye roll from James when I first brought the idea to the table because I wanted to do the play on words with Neverland and Neverlanding, and it sounds a little cliche and a little bit one of those overplayed moments, but the moment we started kind of coming up with those lyrics, it felt really good, and it was kind of just this real driving, falling in love kind of thing. And I think that my wife and I have been together for a long time, before marriage and after marriage, and having a kiddo, and you kind of realize at some point that falling in love, and staying in love, you want to still always have that feeling. And try to find it again and always keep finding it. And so that's kind of where the song started.
That's sweet. This new project, I'm excited about it. 2 songs, what can we expect? And when will we hear some of these?
Oh, man. We can only be us. That's for better or for worse.
We're still discussing kind of the ad dates with the record label right now, but it's nice to be in talks of figuring out what those dates are. Should be, I think we're thinking
June-ish.
Okay.
we don't have an exact date. We're not keeping any secrets. We just don't know. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's this weird thing that most people don't understand from the outside is we write, record, do whatever to make the music, and then it just kind of goes into a room somewhere, waiting to be picked up and appreciated, hopefully someday. And that's kind of when we lose a lot of control. So it seems like everything's moving forward really quickly. So we're thinking May, June-ish.
That's really soon. That's exciting. Have you played any?
It would
of the
be
songs
next week if
live?
it was up to us.
We actually haven't played either of the two songs live. We have them pretty much ready to play out for the fans, but we want to be careful. We try to be careful about playing them too soon.
Because you don't want that first version floating around there to be a really bad take.
Yeah, because once you play it live, it's there.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Versus for when you first got your start in 2000, less so.
Right.
Oh, when we first started,
back when MySpace was still a dating website.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, you could try a song. You could try songs over and over again, and it would never be anywhere, And now you can't do anything on stage without it being recorded. So the landscape has changed just a little bit.
Yeah. But it seems like you're falling right into that. You're like, okay, we're going to change with it, too, by releasing these songs, just not waiting 3 years to make another album.
Right.
So
I think you have to evolve with the music industry, and you have to keep rolling with it. So.
Yeah. What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced as a band since you got your start?
It's been so easy.
I think one thing is riding the waves, the ups and the downs, which we've had each other to kind of help with that a little bit. But just there's a lot of ups and there's sometimes even more downs, and you can't get too discouraged by any of that. And a lot of that is usually not self-inflicted. It's just external things that we can't control.
Just the way it goes.
Yeah, and the way the music industry, talking about Tower Records or whatever else, it has changed so much in the past decade or so. And to be part of that and to kind of find our place, to try to stay ahead of it or to try to stay relevant and all of that, I think that's been the biggest struggle.
Another big change is that you're parents now, you have families. So I know you alluded to it earlier, but what's it like navigating that and the road? Do you take your kids and stuff out on the road with you or sort of FaceTime?
The kids, while they were younger, it was a little easier. Now that like my daughter's just now starting school, so that becomes a little bit more difficult to navigate. But we're very lucky in a way. We kind of go out on the road for 3 or 4 days, and then we get to go home for 3 or 4 days. And so, but when we're home, we get to all day, every day, 24 hours. We're dad. We can spend that time at home. We don't have to do much else, other than have that be the priority. So going out on the road and then coming home and being dad, or it makes it a lot easier.
We spend a whole lot of 5 a.m.s at the airports. Yeah. We can tell you we're the best places to crash and take a nap in about every airport in America, because we're always that first flight out to get home and that first flight out to make the next show.
Not always so glamorous.
No. They lied to everyone about the glamour of being a musician.
But we're blessed too. I mean, used to back in the day, we'd go out on the bus for weeks, months at a time, and successes afforded us to kind of get back. And the tour bus will stay out, and the crew will stay out sometimes, and we get to get home and show our faces. So.
Take me back to those days in Texas when you first got your start in college. What was that like, and how did you all sort of come together to make what you are today? Same crew, same lineup.
If we could remember it.
Was that good of a time?
Yeah, we just started playing regionally, and playing college bars, and our buddies would come out, and then it just, we were all kind of working jobs too, and so this was always a weekend deal, but we had always wanted to make it, go as big as we could with it. And so, we just slowly played, we'd play Texas, we'd play Oklahoma, we'd start branching out Colorado and whatnot. And finally, we were writing music and recording music and caught the ears of Nashville and New York, and the rest was history.
We started at a really good time down in Texas, where there was a really good music just following, where people, especially in college towns, would want to go out and check out the band that maybe your brother or sister or friend or whatever from another city is saying, go see. and we were able to make one fan at a time, and then two fans at a time, and that kind of snowballed very, very slowly at first. But by the time we all graduated from college, we were not making a living playing music by any means, but we were doing well enough, at least in our own heads, that it was worth, you know, pursuing and seeing what we could make out of it. And so we were convinced at that time that we were going to make it.
And you did.
And he did. And what's strange is your idea of making it and your idea of what a lifetime playing music is when you're, you know, 20 years old really changes over time, because a decade would have seemed like a lifetime and a career, and who can think
hindsight, if that guy back then knew what he knew now, things might be a little different, but
we'd all be accountants or lawyers or something.
My gosh. Oh, now you're committed. You can't give up yet.
We are four guys with degrees with the crappiest resumes. It's a lot of time missing there.
Amazing.
If we ever had to get jobs, it would be.
Yeah, what would
you have a lot of explaining to do?
Yeah, if you weren't doing what you were doing, say it didn't work out, what do you think you'd be doing?
God, I don't. I have a marketing and logistics degree.
What about you?
I have a psychology degree, so I'd probably be going back to grad school, figuring it out.
We'd all probably be going back to school, honestly.
Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes.
I was wanting to be a lawyer when I was in college, so that was that. But you know, the more I think about it, though, I think all four of us probably would have, if we had the opportunity, would have wound up doing something in the music business. I think we've all just been passionate about music our whole lives, so.
James, basket weaving?
I was just thinking in my head, you know, and I'm sure, you know, we're all passionate about music, and I would assume we would all keep some string attached to music, probably songwriting or doing something, but yeah, I don't know. I'd be working in a basket weaving company, doing something.
All great careers, but we're glad that you're Eli. You know, you guys who you are right now. I want to do a little flash round of like questions, starting with. We'll just start with you. Your first concert? Do you remember?
I wish that my first concert was, you know, something like the Rolling Stones or something, but it was actually, growing up in Texas. KT Oslin was my first concert as a kid that I can remember at the Houston Rodeo, which is not necessarily as entertaining as most, but it was a good concert either way, from what I remember.
Yeah. All right. What about you?
Chicago.
All right.
Yeah.
Show off.
I think mine was the Steve Miller Band at like a Six Flags or something like that, if I remember correctly, some kind of theme park. So.
Okay.
I'd like to say it was Aerosmith, but the more I think about it, I think it was New Kids on the Block.
Oh, the truth comes out.
Like
The truth comes out.
yeah, I'd err towards Aerosmith. So.
Okay, we'll just keep it as Aerosmith.
There you go.
Just for the sake
They were in
of
the
that.
same year.
Yeah.
This won't be aired, will it?
Yeah, we're not live at all. What about your the biggest influence on you in terms of music?
I mean, growing up, I listened to mostly country music. That was what my parents listened to, and so that was what was always on the radio. So, as a kid and loving country music, it was Alabama and George Strait and those things. And then, but as I got a little older, I got really into Springsteen and Petty, and so I think that you hear a lot of that influence in our music.
Paul Simon. I think that's kind of the music that I took on from my parents and really enjoyed that.
Cool.
I think, a big part of my teenage years was spent listening to like 90s alternative rock, and so like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, all that stuff, and then also Tom Petty as well. So, it's kind of a consistent in my life at least.
Sure.
Yeah, I was a kid of the 90s too, but I also, being a guitar player, I loved Led Zeppelin and Jimmy Page and Stevie Ray Vaughan, being from Texas, and Eddie Van Halen and all that, rock and roll, Chuck Berry and all that stuff. It was all about guitar players for me.
Cool. We were talking about jobs earlier. I'm thinking first job.
Well, it's tough for me because I growing up, I think I grew up in a house where I think my dad wanted me to work at 5. So, but my dad was a farrier growing up, and he also worked for the railroad. I never had to do anything with the railroad with him, but he was a farrier, which is shoeing horses, and so I would help him with that, and that was a lot of fun. And then he would mow yards on the weekends, so I would help him. I would always get the crap jobs, picking the weeds around rose bushes or something, but
Sure.
Yeah.
I lucked out. The guitar shop where I took guitar lessons from, they needed a part-time employee, so they offered me the job. So it was at a guitar shop.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got a job at McDonald's when I was 15, and in Texas, when you're under 16, you can only work, I think it was like 8 hours a week or something legally. And so I would work every Saturday and Sunday for a 4-hour shift, but I would work the counter, and I could never learn the menu because I didn't work there enough. And so every shift, it would start getting busier, and the manager would come and make me go clean the bathroom. So I just ended up cleaning the bathrooms at McDonald's for like a year.
That sounds stressful, though. Imagine you get so busy and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing because I'm never here.
Yeah, and then they'd be like, you out, like we're bringing somebody in.
How big was that paycheck for 8 hours of work at McDonald's?
I don't remember, man. But yeah, it was about having a job.
Obviously, it wasn't enough to buy a CD.
That's great. Bring it all full circle. All right.
Yeah, I'd mow yards during the summers, and then I worked at Chili's one summer before college, and that lasted about. That was a year fired. No, I quit job, and quickly learned that I never wanted to wait tables again. So.
And none of us can imagine James waiting tables.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm not that
That's
coordinated.
a pretty funny thought.
Amazing. All right. Well, we have some questions from the crowd here before we let you go. So
Good luck.
hang tight.
Hi. You guys have mentioned a lot about things that have changed in your 18 years of making music, how people consume it and how you guys write it. What's something that's remained consistent and maybe like a consistent thing of success from that?
The best song tends to win. Like whether you're picking a single, picking songs to make the record. I mean, for us, and especially in our genre, it feels like to go with what feels true, you know.
Yeah. You know, sometimes it can be easy to try to make a decision based on whether it's something you wrote, so you have, you tend to be a little bit biased towards it, or something that's chasing the money. You can always follow your gut, and if you follow your gut, it tends to lead you in the right direction, whether it's the most success or not the most success, but at least you followed your gut. And I think work ethic. I think sometimes there can be moments where you feel as if you're just tired of grinding it out. And as long as you can close your eyes and remind yourself that it's worth working for, you just keep having a good work ethic, because it's not something people are just going to hand you.
Cool. Who's next?
Hi. What's your unforgettable moment in career on concert? What's that?
Man, we have been so lucky to have so many really cool moments. Playing the Grand Ole Opry for the first time, we actually got to debut at the Grand Ole Opry at the Ryman, which they don't have shows there every week, and so that was a lot of fun. Playing the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo for me it was a big one. That if you don't know much about it, it's a huge show in Texas.
It's a NFL stadium where the Texans play, so you can't play in a bigger room. So you're looking out, you're playing in front of 65,000 people.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty.
And if you grew up
surreal
there, knowing how big the Houston rodeo shows are, and being able to be a part of it, we've played it several years in a row, and so it's been really, really cool.
We also got a Distinguished Alumni Award from the University of North Texas, where we went to school, and a couple years ago. And that was really cool because if you would have seen us when we were back in college, we were breaking the rules, and we weren't the best students and all that kind of stuff. And for the university to come back and be proud of us was kind of...
Are you saying we were not voted most likely to be future distinguished
No, I don't
young
think we were
alumni?
whatsoever. No. Yeah.
Getting to play the late shows, too, and just experiences like that, it's like pinch yourself moment. And you grew up watching on TV, as a kiddo, and now your mom's sitting at home getting to watch you on the Tonight Show or whatever. That was one of those moments. Was like, wow, we're wasn't like we finally made it kind of deal, but it was close. So
winning awards, ACM awards, being nominated for a Grammy. I mean, stuff like that is, we've been very lucky to have a lot of that stuff, and so. We can sit here and list our accomplishments, but it comes to a moment, it's like, yeah, we should probably stop.
Well, all great stuff. All right, who's next?
Hi, guys. So you talked about your children and, how you all have kids now. Would you want them to go into music now that you've worked in the industry for so long?
That's a tough question.
I'm really
I ask
curious to
myself
see
that question.
like where music's going to be when it's time for them to start making those choices. I definitely want to encourage my children to learn music. There's so much you can gain from just learning how to play an instrument, learning how to play piano or whatever else. The way it stretches different sides of your brain. And as far as going into the business, I definitely think that there are a lot of different ways you can go into the business that have a better trajectory. Yeah. So I would I don't know. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would always want my children to be able to follow their passions.
Yeah.
And if that's what it was, then I would support them. But I would never want to push someone into it.
Well, it's like our parents. I mean, our parents told us, like, look, if you want to do that, just realize that you need to finish school and make an educated decision on whether or not this is the smart move for you. It worked out for us, but it's that we were lucky. It was a good combination of work ethic and luck and being at the right place at the right time. So we can tell our kids that, but I think if our kids went into the music industry, it would be a little easier for them because we would be able to help them through it. My daughter is very musically inclined, and she's already playing the piano, and it's pretty amazing. But going into the music business is a completely different animal.
All right. Well, thank you for that question. Thank you so much for coming by today. It's been such a pleasure. The album's out now and new music on the way. Very exciting. And you guys are on tour, so lots going on. Give it up one more time for Eli Young Band.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.